Hello, this is Trop, and I'm back with another geopolitical video. And the subject of this video is the European continent, but more specifically the major powers of that continent, and kind of their history, what the positions of those countries are nowadays, what they were able to do back in the past, and what is the collective state of the European continent as of this moment, that being 2024. So without further ado, let's begin. So first off, the European continent is fairly lacking when it comes to resources and even geography, which in some areas is fairly convenient and in some very not so convenient. However, unintentionally, with its fairly bad geography, fostered a fairly interesting and innovative environment, and then eventually cultures, traditions and histories of nations. For example, let's take the Greeks, who tended to live in fairly sparse areas of land in the Aegean Sea, in the islands of the Aegean Sea, subsequently investing lots into shipbuilding, so the city-states could to some extent be still interconnected because of, say, trade or even military reasons as well. So yeah, at some point Greece was building the most advanced ships at one point, and even the biggest. Then the geographic latitude turns west to Portugal, which was kind of isolated on the edge of the Iberian Peninsula. Not just that peninsula, but the European continent as a whole. So the Portuguese were already incentivized ever since the start of the Age of Exploration to continue advancing their shipbuilding abilities and explore much further because of this fairly unique geographic position in the European continent. And then soon enough, Spain caught on as well, and ushered a new, period of European history where Spain eventually became filthy rich. At one point, it was the richest country in the world. But back to the Portuguese, they mainly hopped around the western coast of Africa, then eventually Cape Point, and then they eventually got to India, and they started trading with the locals, and they started importing spices and goods, and they themselves started trading that with other people around the world and got very rich as well. So they invested a lot subsequently into their navy as well, and the Spanish wanted this as well. And so and then we know what happened after that. I believe it was Columbus's second voyage or third voyage back to the Caribbean, where he realised that this probably isn't India, this is probably a completely new continent. My calculations were completely incorrect, and this ushers another age of exploration, and subsequently loads of genocide as well, and the destruction of millennia-old empires, cities and cultures, and literally even people, which was probably not the best thing, so thank you, Cortez. But anyway, then for example you've got the Dutch, who very much doing the entire spice thing as well, but they take it to another level. They start trading and importing stuff from Taiwan, which was Formosa, and Indonesia, which was the Dutch East Indies, and they become technologically fairly advanced as well. And then even at one point they were a colony of Spain, and they were able to defeat them as well, and then start recolonizing again, which is pretty insane. And then England and France get interested as well, mostly focusing at that point on the North American continent. However, also later they would establish colonies in Asia and Africa as well. And then here comes a weird precursor to the formation of the United Kingdom. Scotland, when it was an independent kingdom, also tried to colonise some bits of Central America, what is modern day Panama, however failed miserably, and then subsequently became bankrupt, and they slowly eventually merged with England, which is pretty interesting. And then Britain, headed by the East India Company, starts expanding into the Indian subcontinent, and just as a whole, when they started again like investing into their navy in this, they became incredibly strong. And then it's kind of like at this point where, you know, Europe is the hegemon of the world, colonizing, pillaging and trading with the world, basically. And the decline is an incredibly difficult process, but I'll try to simplify it as much as possible. But there are various factors why said countries stopped colonizing, or when they became less incentivized to do so, whether that be them getting invaded in the case of Spain during the Napoleonic Wars, and then subsequently becoming extremely weak, or imploding in the case of the British Empire after World War II, and actually even before that, even in the 1920s, or for example in the case of the Dutch, you know, becoming poor after World War II and being unable to maintain colonies around the world, or in the case of the Portuguese and French empires fighting civil wars and then being incentivized by the United Nations to decolonize. And I really think that after basically World War II, the age of empires was already slowly on its way out, and the fact that there's literally a world war on the European continent, millions of people being killed, economies destroyed, and then, you know, for example, being ravaged by leftist fanatics like Greece or Yugoslavia, or, you know, countries that were in the Eastern Bloc. But that's a completely different topic. Or, you know, just being completely, you know, broke after the war, to an extent that the United States had to collectively help an entire continent recovering from a world war. And then obviously the Cold War kicks off, and Europe in a way is basically divided by ideology. You've got one half which is politically, militarily, economically aligned with the United States, and the other with the Soviet Union. And so you can really see that apparent influence just diminish over the course of a few decades. And now you've got, you know, still the United States. Russia is declining, is both, you know, when it comes to military output and eventually even demography. And if you've got new countries such as China, India, who are now regaining influence, I guess, if you will, if you want to go thousands of years back, you know, all those many factors now in the modern day, new competitors, new upcoming countries, and this are really kind of putting a strain on what the power structure used to really look like some 300 years ago. And so, as the saying goes, the 19th century was the British century, the 20th century was the American century, and the 21st century is probably going to be the Asian century, right? Or like, at least I think that might be a saying. But yeah, anyway, just, you know, leave your opinions if you want about Europe. And yeah, anyways, I'll probably see you in the next video.